so glad you found my channel, Sweet Uniqueities, where everything I do here is always sweet and custom for an event, making it a true uniquity. Today we're going to be making flowers from the Ozarks. You're not going to want to miss this one. So let's jump into today's project. I live in the Northeast, but I am a Missouri girl through and through. I was born and raised by people that have been born and raised by people from Missouri for years, centuries actually. And so my heart is Missouri. And so today we are going to be doing two very different flowers, very different backgrounds from Missouri. And I'm not only from Missouri, I am from the Ozark area. So if you all are familiar with that crazy show on Netflix that Jason Bateman produces and is in, and ladies, like really, I mean, come on, like he's a sweet uniquity all of his own, right? But that's the area I am from. I am from a small town just outside of Lake of the Ozarks, and it was a place that I spent many weekends and much of my summer. My family had a cabin down there, and it was just a great place to grow up and good people. Now, when I tell people that in the Northeast, that I'm from around Lake of the Ozarks, from the Ozark area, they're like, you know, you reminded us of Ruthie. And I don't know if it's the hair or if it's my accent, but you know, I know it's not my use of profanity because Sweet Uniqueities does not talk like that. But Ruthie is very, very colorful with her creativity and her language. She can use profanity as an adjective to describe profanity that she's using as a verb or profanity that she's using as a noun. And it's just really creative. And I'm not going to do that. So anyway, so I know I get confused with Ruthie a lot, but I know it's not because of that. It's probably the other things. So anyway, today we are going to start with the dogwood. And the dogwood is the flowering state flower or tree of Missouri, and it has such symbolism, which is so beautiful. So what I have done, and we're going to do this kind of fast, is I have rolled out some white fondant that I added some Tylose to make it hard, and I used a dogwood cutter. So you can see that that is a dogwood cutter. And then because I'm extra, I have an embosser, and this is a Wilton embosser, and this is the dogwood embosser, and then there's also the center. And so I did those things in advance because I really wanted to talk to you today. But I let those dry, and then but while I let them dry, I crumpled up some foil and let them dry on the foil so that they would have some interesting dimension and they would not be flat, because I am not into flat flowers. So anyway, so those have some curvature to them, and can you see the little indentions from the embosser? And I'm going to, and I'm using some lime little powder to color the center because the center is green. So a little bit about the dogwood, which is very interesting. History says, or you know, I don't even know, history or something says, that the dogwood wood actually provided the wood for Christ's cross. And so, because it was a very sturdy wood originally. And then after the crucifixion, the dogwood was apparently cursed and it changed to a different kind of tree. So it's it's not as sturdy. You couldn't use it to, you know, do much with anymore at this point. But it is a beautiful flowering tree. And the petals represent a cross because they're like a cross shape. And then the edges actually have a little bit of like pinkish red on the very tips, and I'm going to add that here. And that is supposed to be a symbolism of the nails, where the blood where the nails were. And then the center represents the crown of thorns. So here is the center. I did in the kind of a limey green because it's limey green, and I will attach that. But and I'll add some little color to the edges. But that's how difficult it is to make a dogwood. It really isn't, but it is such a beautiful tree. Around Lake of the Ozarks, they have dogwood festivals, more in the spring, of course, and they're just very prevalent. There's pink ones as well, which are gorgeous. But Maximus, what do you think of the dogwood? He has nothing to say, again. I mean, he's a worthless producer. How come I can't get Jason Bateman to produce my channel? Like, that would be way more helpful. Now, I will tell you on a side note, Jason, we all know, and I love you, man, we all know that if you're from the area, Lake of the Ozarks, that your show is only about 0.5% of anything accurate. So if you want to bring some credibility to the show, I'm happy to give you some suggestions, because if you just take Wendy and Marty on a little road trip, and they could go into Eldon, which is where I'm from, and they could go to the Creamy and get a chili cheese footlong hot dog and a marshmallow Pepsi. I mean, come on, people of Missouri would be like, whoop, finally, we've been waiting for something to actually be accurate. But I will tell you, when you throw in terms like Osage Beach and Bagnell Dam and things like that, I get excited because it reminds me of home. So you keep that up, but road trip to the Creamy, come on.
Here I'm just taking petal dust, adding it to the edges of the dogwood, and then using a makeup brush from the Dollar Tree to blend it in so that it looks softer.
So now we're going to be talking about the next flower, the scandalous flower. And but the thing about the scandalous flower is we're going to be doing a version of the scandalous flower that's not so scandalous. So hope that makes sense. Now, growing up, my sweet grandmother Mabel she just loved nature. She loved to walk and pick up rocks. She loved the birds. She loved flowers. She had the most gorgeous gardens ever. And so she had a cellar. And I don't know if you know what a cellar is. If you are a younger person, you may not know what a cellar is. You might think a cellar is somebody who tries to sell something, right? A cellar at the farmer's market or whatever. But a cellar in the old days, C-E-L-L-A-R, is an area under the ground. Sometimes it was attached to the house, and sometimes it was out away from the house, but it was underground, and there was usually some big wooden door and either creepy steps or a ladder. And my grandma had it away from the house, and there was kind of a mound above it, so it was kind of like a small hill, and it had a creepy ladder, and it was lots of cobwebs. But a cellar was used to put items in to preserve them. So like if you canned something, which canning, there's so many things that have changed, but the new Instant Pot is kind of like what a pressure cooker was back in the old days. And then when my mom was canning something and it'd be going, it should be like, stay out of the basement because your head could blow off if this thing explodes. And it was very scary, but the Instant Pot's not like that. But an actual canner where people would can things, but they didn't can things in cans, they canned things in jars. But anyway, like tomatoes and green beans and potatoes and, you know, different things. But they keep them in the cellar because it was under the ground and it would help keep them cool and fresh longer. So, so my grandmother had this cellar. So over the cellar, she had tons of poppies and they were so beautiful. She loved poppies, and they were the common poppy. The red poppies. They're not the ones that you make drugs from. So there's no opium derivatives in a red poppy. It's all from a different kind of poppy. But the Snells on the Ozarks, they don't plant the red ones. But Grandma Mabel was not into producing opium. She was only into producing beautiful things in her garden. So God rest her soul. So so we're going to make the red poppy in honor of Grandma.
So just take your red fondant, add some CMC or Tylose powder to it, roll it out pretty thin, and then use that fantastic 5-petal cutter that I use for so many different flowers and different projects on this channel. Make sure you check out other videos to see what else I do with this cutter. But then just use a ball tool to thin out the edges, and that really just helps it look less chunky, less whimsical, I guess, and a little more true to nature. Then to let them dry, I just dried them over a circular mold so that I got a concave shape. And you'll need 2 flower petals for each flower you're doing, each poppy, so that you can stack them. I accidentally deleted the footage of how I made the center. Just take a little black fondant and make it into a little flat circle. Let it dry, and then just use some edible glue and some little black nonpareils to press onto that so that you get the look of the little poppy seeds. And it's truly that simple. So once that's all dry, you just stack them together and then you're ready to put them on top of cupcakes. I had so much fun doing these flower toppers from the state of Missouri and my home area from the Ozarks. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I look forward to seeing you on the next video, so make sure you subscribe and hit like. And I hope that you have a sweet and unique day, and we'll see you soon.